All right. Looks like we're live. How is everybody doing? Let some people file in here as we verify that everything is working. Looks like we're good. Looks like we've got some signal here online. All right. Yes. Well, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Jason Levine, Principal Worldwide Evangelist for Adobe. And let's see, we got some sound and picture here. Loud and clear. All right, excellent. Okay, great to see you. Well, thank you so much again for joining me. It's great. Bruce Bullis, what's up? So again, I'm here today to showcase to you a sampling of the new features across 5 different applications released this week to the Creative Cloud video and audio products. Hey, what's up, everybody? And we got an enormous amount of stuff to cover. So I saw a couple people in the chat there was saying, hey, keep the hellos to a minimum. So yes, this is a live stream. It is interactive. And I would love for all of you to tell us where you're coming from. Where are you watching this stream? We want to see that. Got a lot of people from Adobe in the chat as well. So what that means, if you've ever watched my live streams, I tend to break my train of thought and say and answer things kind of as we're going. We've got so much to cover in this hour. I'm really going to stick to just kind of getting through the apps, and I'll try and save some time at the end to interject some Q&A from me. Got a lot of Adobe people here in the chat, so they can be answering your questions as well. And I'll kind of have some logical pauses where we can, kind of chat about certain features. So are you ready? Nice. Yeah, this is going to be awesome. So, and by the way, for the first time ever, we've got NAB coming up. This stuff is available to you now. So what we're going to be showing this week at NAB in Vegas, you can get it today. You can start playing with the stuff if you're not already on the current version of Creative Cloud. You can download the trials even and start working with everything I'm about to show you. So it's great to have you here, and let's get started. All right. Wow, look at this. Unbelievable international audience. Looking good. Okay. So we're going to start in Premiere Pro, and the first thing we're going to talk about is a brand new panel called the Essential Graphics panel. And effectively what this does is it gives you all the tools you need for graphics in one place. And the key here, before we even get started with this, is that you must have After Effects installed to make this work, whether it's a licensed version or even a trial. I want to emphasize that because, again, a lot of you will be new to these applications. If you want to be working with Essential Graphics and the stuff I'm going to show you here, you need to have After Effects installed as well. Even if it times out, it'll still work. Just make sure you've got After Effects installed to do this. And as mentioned, what this is really going to do, it's basically going to give you the capabilities of creating graphics and titles in a sort of reimagined way right on canvas, right inside the program monitor in Premiere Pro. So if we just take a quick look at this timeline that I've got here, and I've got the audio dropped down a bit. The graphics that you're seeing here were created, the titles that you're seeing here were all created directly in Premiere using this new panel. And this is, nothing terribly fancy. You've just got some kind of fade on, opacity change, a little bit of blur. But the key is you can do this right on screen, staying in the moment, you don't have to leave anything, and you've got this very organized panel to help you kind of get started and just start creating directly. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to bounce over to this sequence here where we've got some various ocean shots. This is all Adobe stock content, by the way. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about with regard to Adobe stock. And the first thing you'll notice if you look at actually the tools panel, and by the way, lots of new workspaces. We're going to be talking about workspaces today. Up at the top here, we've got a brand new graphics workspace, which reveals the Essential Graphics panel. Also in the tools panel, you will notice, a type tool. Familiar type tool. And if we just click on this, you'll see that you have standard type tool as well as a vertical type tool. So with our type tool, let's just go ahead and click right here, right inside the program monitor. I'm going to type high tide. Now, when I do that and I move over to the Essential Graphics panel, first and foremost, you're going to see that you've got some very basic controls for aligning and transforming. So I can go ahead and align this in the center. And horizontal center. I'm not going to do anything terribly special. Why? Because I'm not very good at graphic design. And you're going to see why that's so cool and why I've lost a lot of the fear and trepidation that I had about using these things because of integration that we have with CC libraries in this feature, and it's super awesome. So again, we can let's scale this up a little bit here. I'll kind of realign this. If I want to change the text, the font, I can simply hover over the font menu here. And I'm just using my magic mouse or wheel mouse, and I can just start to kind of scroll through to get the particular font that I want. I'm actually looking for this one here called Paralucent. And again, I can change the various style here. We'll leave it at, actually, maybe I'll do extra light for now. Okay, you've got all of your various justification options, your appearance options. Maybe we don't want this white right away. I think I'll just leave it as it is for right now. Okay, so typing text right onto the canvas, okay? Change, fundamental change, so much easier. And a lot of this tech was kind of borrowed, and it's going to feel familiar from Photoshop and After Effects. Now, it also contains a layer stack. So we want to add something else. Maybe I want to add something like just like a rectangular bar across the center of this. So you can see here I can choose between text, vertical text, rectangle, or ellipse, or even bring in something from a file, which I'll do as well. Let me go ahead and grab a rectangle here in this lovely shade of red. Let's go ahead and bring this over, and we're just going to stretch this out. All right, maybe even make this a little bit bigger while I'm at it. Do the same thing and align and transform this into the center. Now again, I want the text to be on top of that. So as you would assume, I can reorder the layers here very simply. Let's go back to that shape. Let's change that color. I don't want it red. Maybe we'll do something kind of in a bluish hue. Are you bluish? Something like this. Let's readjust our opacity here. Okay. And you're kind of getting the idea of how this works. Again, right inside the program monitor. Now, let's go ahead and add some additional elements here. Let's say I've got a logo, an Illustrator file, or even video, which I'm going to show you a little bit later, can be added to these essential graphics templates. Ultimately, this is kind of what we're building up here, perhaps. And this is something which the idea behind this is you can reuse this and kind of reimagine your graphics workflow as an editor. If you've got someone who can build these elements for you, they can all be shared via CC libraries. So I'm going to go to From File, and I happen to have a little logo from a travelogue series of mine called Jace's Places. Go ahead and, oh, not that. Let's go ahead and move this. We'll just kind of stick this down over here, over to the side. Maybe I want to scale that down a little bit. It's kind of a little bit big. All right, I'm just going to stick this right over here, just to show you that I'm bringing in an Illustrator element directly, okay? Now, just as you saw before with the other elements, we can begin to animate this stuff right here. And you do the animation directly inside of your effects controls panel. So the nice thing is the process of animating these doesn't change from the way that you were already animating some basic controls directly in Premiere Pro before. Really, really nice. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and just do some basic opacity animations on some of these elements. So yeah, maybe we've got the shape up at the top here. So the first thing is, maybe as we bring this in, we want that to kind of fade up. So let's go ahead and go into transform here. I'm going to set the opacity here at 1 second, set a keyframe there, wind it back. Let's go to 0 here, and it fades on, okay? Similarly, we want to do the same thing for the text. So you'll see you have all the same options. Your source text options here are also revealed in the effects controls. I'm going to focus on transform here. So once again, we'll do the same thing, opacity at 100 at this time code location. Let's go ahead and wind back like this. And maybe while we're at it, we'll even do a little bit of scaling. So here we want the scale to be 100%. Just before it, maybe it'll scale up a little bit more. Again, my amazing animation capabilities here. And the first keyframe will start at something like this. So it kind of scales up. And lastly, we'll do the same thing for my little logo. All right, so you're just getting the idea. This is really simple. The idea is to keep this simple and effective so that if you're creating this in Premiere, it feels familiar. The process feels very familiar. Now, I don't want the final opacity on that Jace's Places logo to be quite that much. So maybe we'll make this 48, set a keyframe here, wind it back, same thing to 0, okay? And there we go, all right? Now, this is nothing special, but I may want to reuse this element, okay? And in fact, I'm likely going to do that. So I can just simply hold down my Alt or Option key here, and I'm gonna drag in multiple versions of this across a couple of these different videos that I have here. And you'll see why I'm gonna do that in just a moment, all right? Nice, okay, people are liking it so far. Okay. So what if I want to actually save this element? Well, you'll notice that we also have a new graphics menu item here. So up in the graphics menu item, I can choose to export this as a motion graphics template. You're going to start to understand why this is getting so powerful and why this sort of reimagined Essential Graphics workflow is really cool for editors and also for editors who work with visual effects and motion graphics artists. So we'll call this High Tide Live for the live stream, and you can choose the destination. Now you can save this locally directly to the Essential Graphics panel. And you'll notice here, again, in Essential Graphics, you've got the option here to browse, and you can browse either locally, but I want to put this in my library. I might want to use this elsewhere. I might want to put this into a shared library so the people that I work with, whether it's in my organization or just others that I've shared content with, can take these animations and use them, right? I know someone who designs lower thirds. We've got a shared library. Now he can create lower third elements for me, store them there, and I can always access them. So I can save that directly to my Creative Cloud library. And just to kind of show you here, if we go to libraries real quickly, look at that. It took like all of 1 second. There it is in Jason's library, High Tide Live, okay? Created in Adobe Premiere Pro. Tells you the duration, how big it is, real simple. Okay. Now, as we're working on this, let's go ahead. I'm going to change some of the text on these. Now, by the way, this is some Adobe stock content here. So I'm going to change the text on this particular one. So perhaps this will be, instead of high tide, we'll call this one low tide. And you'll see why I'm doing this in just a second. All right. I'll come over to this one here as well. And perhaps we'll call this no tide because they're in the desert. All right. All right. Something like that. Okay. So you've got sort of 3 versions of the same basic graphic running on your content, all with the same elements. Okay. So now what I want to do is, as I'm looking at this, I think, well, I kind of want to make some modifications to this. First of all, I don't love the fact that this is extra light. Let's make this actually light. All right. So we're going to go to the light variation here. And then maybe I wanted a little bit of a drop shadow. So I can go ahead and add a drop shadow, and that's way too much. So let's bring the opacity down on that. All right. And maybe we'll adjust kind of the blur and the distance. All right. Kind of click away from this too. So looks a little bit better there. Okay. Something like that. And I think, I might want to use this multiple times. In fact, this is kind of like the master look that I want. So you may have noticed in Essential Graphics that we have something here called Master Styles. This is absolutely my favorite feature in this Essential Graphics feature, because now what you can do is you can create a master text style. So I'm going to call this HT Live 1, okay? And now I can apply that master text style to each of these, okay? And I only have to do it once, because what happens is, as is often the case, so you apply that master style, you can see it takes all the attributes there. By the way, if we had done a font change, color change, anything that we've done, it will reflect. Now, that's why I just mentioned that. What if I'm watching this back and go, you know what? Yeah, the white really isn't working. I need to modify that further. I want to change the fill color. Okay, so let's go to something more like a sort of an earthy tone, something like this, like an orange, all right? I'm going to modify that. Okay. So when I do that, you'll see that now it's orange. And by the way, if we look at the master style, you'll see that it shows that it's been modified. So what you now have the option to do is you can sync from the original master style, meaning it'll return to its original attributes, or you can push, i.e. save the changes to the existing HT Live 1 master style. So if I go ahead and do that, it does just that. It saves it. And now when I move to my other titles, they too respect the changes that I've made there. So master styles, I mean, this is, again, if you're thinking about working with, any kind of text, graphics, lower thirds, where you have this kind of master look and you want to make one change and you've got 10 of these in your timeline, you can change it once inside the master style and it'll affect everything, all the subsequent iterations. Taking that even a step further, you also have the ability to upgrade a particular graphic to a master graphic. And in the same spirit, if you were using that same graphic multiple times in your film, in your edit, any change you make to that is reflected to all the subsequent iterations as well. So you can upgrade it to a master graphic. And you'll notice that if you look inside of the effects controls, This kind of follows the same concept when you're working with master clips, master clip effects, kind of like the way that we work with Lumetri, right? So you can add, for instance, an input LUT or something to the master clip, but you might have 10 subclips of that in your edit. So they'll all have the same LUT applied, but then you have secondary control on the actual iteration, the instance of that graphic itself in the timeline, okay? Now, naturally, it wouldn't be a new release if we didn't give you some presets, and this is something that you're seeing more and more of as we continue to augment the updates here, okay? So what you'll notice inside of Essential Graphics, oh, notice, by the way, here's our libraries. So once again, here's Jason's library. Here's the High Tide Live. This is one that I made yesterday. Here's another one that I made yesterday. So just to kind of show you, you can drag this right in from your library. It'll load up that motion graphics template. Let's move this over. Let's see what this one looked like. My amazing lower third skills right there. Okay, but you get the idea. Dragged right in from CC Libraries. Let's go back to Browse, Essential Graphics, and we've got a whole series of preset content that you can use, and it's really easy to see here, and that includes things like captions, subtitles, credits, graphic overlays, lower thirds. So let's go to one of these credits ones. I love these. Here, let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of that. And back to Browse, and let's drag in bold credits. This is going to be some of your sort of cinema style defaults. Now, by the way, we've also got complete typekit support with this panel. Now, you know, we added typekit into Premiere Pro several updates ago. If you are missing a font, which I am in this case, you can go ahead and tell it to sync that font, and it will do just that. And it's telling you here, please allow some time, a couple seconds really, depends on your connection, of course, for it to sync the appropriate typekit font. And you'll get a little notification if you've got them turned on in your CC desktop to show you that. I bring this one up just because, one, it looks very standard, pretty cool. Also, it's got kind of a nice little blur as you're flying these things in. Okay, and actually I think that's just a directional blur, and it is. You can see that a directional blur has been applied again to the top of the layer stack there, or the bottom of the layer stack, depending upon how you're viewing it, to kind of create that blurred effect. And the text itself, each of these different text layers, again, you've got complete control over the alignment, the orientation, the actual text itself, the fill, the shape, the style. You get the idea. If we wanted to apply that master style that we just made to that one, we can go ahead and do that, right? We don't want that, so we're going to put that back to none. But you get the idea. Okay, so lots of different options there. If we go into something like, let's go into social media. Now, I wanted to pull this up because these, here, let's go into this one, the share. What's cool about these, now you saw how I brought in the Illustrator graphic moments ago. You also have, and I'm not going to sync this font, that's okay. You also have the ability, as I mentioned, to bring in video elements. And these, again, can get saved to that template. So when you bring this one in, this is, again, in sort of a social media share graphic. Again, it's got a little bit of blur on there. And actually, this one shows you here, you can see you've got some Gaussian blur. But you can see that that circular pattern, that's actually a piece of video. See that right there as I'm scrubbing through this? That's actual video, probably likely created in After Effects and just kind of exported with an alpha channel. So again, you can bring in video elements and those can be part of the template as well. What? Amazing stuff. What about importing ones? Okay. Well, I'm just going to show you real quickly, and then we're actually going to go over to After Effects and show you sort of how you have more control over there. Let me just show you kind of importing what are known as the motion graphics templates here. Let's go to this Gold Rush show title. Go ahead and import this. Okay. Go back up here. And there's Gold Rush show title. Okay, so we just imported one of these. Now this was actually created in After Effects, and we're going to come back to that. The reason I showed you that is, notice the ones here that have the /AE. That's actually showing you that those were built in After Effects. And as you might guess, the After Effects ones have a whole different set of editable parameters that you can work with. All right, so here's some sort of news package style lower thirds. Now, if you take a look at the editable parameters here, first and foremost, you've got things like your main title. So maybe this will be my name, Jason Levine. And the secondary title here can be Live Before NAB 2017. And again, it all updates right on screen. Now, you've got a couple different controls that the animator allowed me to modify, including what you see here, this globe animation and styling. These are comments that you can add from within After Effects, which I'm going to show you in just a moment. So, for instance, if I kind of scroll through the rotation speed here, it's going to just take a second to kick in. That's actually going to modify how that little globe is moving over time. You've also got the angle offset here. Oh, you can see it just kind of kicked in right there. So I'm kind of moving the angle of the globe now. You're kind of seeing that a little slowly right there. Latitude offset. So these are just different parameters, probably likely expressions or tied to expressions created in After Effects that me as the editor can modify here directly in Premiere Pro. I don't even have to go over there, which is so unbelievably cool. And I'm going to show you even more in just a second. So actually, let's actually go ahead and do that. So let's bounce over to After Effects for a second here and kind of show you how we build these things up, all right? So, oh, and I see Dave Helmley's in here, and if you haven't already checked out Dave's video, that one really gives you kind of a full overview of everything that's in this latest Premiere Pro release, also here on the Creative Cloud YouTube channel and on Dave's Tech Table channel. So, okay, so we have this graphic, very complex graphic with glitching and kind of cool video elements here. And here we are inside of the new Essential Graphics workspace in After Effects. So I'm just going to change my view here so I'm not cutting off the view. There we go. All right. So the first thing we're going to do if we want to actually build up a graphics template from AE and use that in Premiere is give it a name. So I'll call this Sci-Fi Jace 01. All right. Now, you'll notice down below that we've got, what looks like a lot of nested pre-comps and a lot of elements here. So I want to know what supported properties can I actually bring into the Essential Graphics panel so I can allow my editors to edit. Well, it's not going to be everything. I mentioned we do support expressions, all different types of effects and things, but that's why we created this button to solo the supported properties. Super intuitive. I mean, they've made this really so easy that it doesn't, there's not a great deal of learning required, really to just start working with this whole new panel and this whole new way to integrate graphics and really streamline your graphics workflow and bring advanced capabilities to your editing workflow, even if they were sort of developed and created on the After Effects side. So here, now that I'm showing all supported properties, I'm going to twirl down because I'm actually looking for, I want to sort of allow things like editing the text. We saw that earlier. So you can see all of this stuff is supported here. Let's go ahead and grab this source text. I'll drag this into the panel. I can rename this. So this will be first line text. Okay, and by the way, I'll add a comment in just a second there. This is the name, so let's go ahead and add this one as well. Okay, and this will be second line text. Okay, so that's just the text elements. And now I'm going to add a comment. The following features relate to position and look. All right, so that's going to appear inside of Premiere Pro. Let's scroll back up here, and you can see I've got the sliders to adjust the left and right of the graphic. So we can go ahead and stick that in here. We'll just call this left-right adjust. So very easy to add names to this stuff as well. We got to know what this stuff is. If it just comes in as slider, that's not going to tell us anything. So this is title up, down. Okay. Let's keep kind of scrolling down here. We've got drift speed. Okay, maybe we'll add that one too, just to give you the idea. Drift speed. And then, whoops, and then let's call this one lighting. All right, come down here, lighting direction, drop that in there. Okay, now just to kind of show you light direction, how this works, just kind of move this in and you can kind of see what this looks like. Here's how the lighting direction affects the actual animation. So again, I can choose how many sort of variations the editor has by going into this edit range option here. So this is super cool because you might have, a super endless amount of variety in your native After Effects comp, but maybe you don't want that much editability. So you can change the actual range. So I could say, okay, let's do from 0 to 120. Also, with some effects I've found, kind of just in playing around with this recently, is with some elements, you know, the lesser the range, kind of the better the modification or kind of real-time updating in Premiere as you're working with them. You'll just kind of see that as you go along, as you start working with these things. Okay, so you get the idea. So we've got text editable, we've got the position, other elements. We can add any of the additional supported properties into this motion graphics template. But now we want to export this because I want to be able to share this with my editor, okay? Again, we've been talking about libraries for a really long time, and it's not even, is it a year and a half? 2 years ago, we really had very limited library support within the video apps. Here's how this gets so cool. So I'm the After Effects creator. I'm going to go to Export Motion Graphics Template. Oh, here, and let me just go ahead and save this. I'll give it a new name. Let's call this JL4, okay? Export Motion Graphics Template. You can see there's some video elements in there. I don't know if you saw as it was clicking through. You saw MP4. All right. Now, where do I want to put this? Again, do I want to put it locally or do I want to put it into a library? You know, I'm the terrible graphics creator. I'm the worst. I don't need it local because I don't want to see my own stuff. I want you to create some for me and I want you to share a library with me. So I'm going to place this into Jason's library, which is one of my main CC libraries. And you can see, again, right away, it shows up here inside of my library. So at this point, if I wanted to bring this into Premiere Pro as well, look at that. I mean, really, in just seconds here, let's go back to this view. Here it is, Sci-Fi Jace 01, created in After Effects. It also shows the size. Why is it 69 megs? Because there's some MP4 video in there, okay? So just like we saw before, I can now take this and I can drag this down into my timeline. All right, give it a second to load the template. And while it's doing that, I'm going to take a quick sip. Dave also mentions, just as I said, yep, editing the range is critical as you need to set a range in some cases for better control. So true. And it's just one of the other genius things that they've done to make this even more functional. And just as you see, check it out. How freaking awesome. If any of you were in a shared library with me right now, you'd have this. And again, right on screen, I can say first assistant title. So this is, live stream dude. That was lame. All right, sorry. They can't all be winners, and that's going to be me, Jason Levine. Okay. And again, we talked about, left, right adjust of the text. So again, I can kind of move these things around. You can see this is the tilt up and down, etc. You see it's a little bit delayed here. It'll start caching those frames and it's going to be a little bit faster. But what I love to notice the comments, right? Lighting, comments. This feature relates to position and look. Let's go ahead and adjust the light direction here. And you've just got such cool control so quickly that this just changes everything. It really changes everything. And I've spent now an enormous amount of time on showcasing this feature. So that is the Essential Graphics panel, motion graphics templates with Premiere Pro and After Effects. Amazing stuff. Do we like it? Yes. Okay. All right. So now let's move over to Essential Sound. And for that, we're going to click over to our new audio workspace. And I'm going to play a little bit of this for you. Now, the Essential Sound panel is basically a panel that allows you to easily identify and perform standard audio tasks to improve your audio without having to be an audio engineer. Now, this is something which many of you will know from Audition. We've now brought the power of Essential Sound in the spirit of Essential Graphics and in the spirit of the Lumetri Color panel into Premiere Pro. We're going to make this really easy, but still give you complete control in the background if you want to actually tweak and modify things very impressively. So this is a short film called See You Around, directed by Oren Brimmer, and you'll actually see him in the scene here. And I want you to take a quick listen to this. Now, part of the way that we make this easy with Essential Sound is that we've basically divided audio into 4 specific audio types. These are the most commonly encountered audio types, and they are dialogue, music, sound effects, and ambience. So in this particular project, this is a real world short film. We've got dialogue, we've got background sound, we've got sound effects, and we've got music. So let's take a quick listen to this. And what you want to know, and what I want you to hear, is that this is completely unmixed, untreated. So obviously dialogue levels are all over the place. Ambient levels are too loud. The music isn't quite right. Take a quick listen and let's see what we've got here.
Hi, yeah, hi. I'd like to get a drink, please.
Okay.
Great. I'd like an elderberry.
Oh, actually, we don't have that.
I've been here before and I've definitely had it.
Okay. So again, that's actually Oren Brimmer right there. It's pretty cool. And if you go to IMDb, just a little short note, go see how he refers to himself in this short film. I can't say it. It's not safe for work, but it's pretty funny if you look at his IMDb page. Okay, so you can hear right away that the dialogue is all over the place, right? So this is where this panel gets amazingly powerful and cool. And I'm not going to be able to show you all the things you can do about this. Incidentally, today you can watch how to use this panel in Premiere Pro via CC Learn, courtesy of yours truly. You can also find a tutorial on this, which is also edited on my own YouTube channel as well. So what I'm going to do, the first 4 tracks that we see here are all dialogue. So I'm going to select all of them inside the sequence. And I'm going to go up to Essential Sound and tell it that these are all dialogue. And what this now does is it reveals a series of effects and filters that you would commonly use to work with dialogue. So this is the other thing. I gotta say, I'm an audio geek. When I first saw this in Audition, I thought, is this, it's a lot of single sliders and that scares me. And is this really going to work? It can change the way you do things. And I'm going to show you first and foremost how. With this simple button right here called Auto Match. Now this is something we've been talking about for years. I've talked about this, and it's effectively the ability to take all of your dialogue across multiple speakers. So here we've got 3 different people. You've got the bartender and the 2 guys, all at varying levels, right? Obviously this is done with boom mics. There's even some ADR in here. So the loudness is all over the place. We're not talking about peak. We're talking about the way that your ear perceives the average volume. And I want to be able to match all of these together so that at least before I do anything else, they're kind of all at the same starting level. Now to do this manually, right here, it's probably 50 clips. That's a real drag, right? And it also takes a lot of time. Auto match, 1 click, 1, 2, 3, done. And if you take a look here, you can see that it has auto-matched to a target loudness of -23 LUFS, which is in fact the US broadcast standard ITU BS 1770-3 for loudness units relative to full scale. So right away, it's done all of that for us. So now if we wind back to where the talking begins, just take a quick listen and you'll see just how radically it just got me into a better place to begin editing the dialogue.
Hi, yeah, hi. I'd like to get a drink, please.
Okay.
Great. I'd like an elderberry liqueur.
Oh, actually, we don't have that.
I've been here before and I've definitely had it here, so you
Oh, okay.
By the way, this is so fun. I've seen this so many times and I still laugh. Hilarious. Okay, so you can hear it, right? You can hear right away. You can hear right away that everything is a bit more balanced. Now, this hasn't done any EQ. It hasn't done anything particularly fancy to the audio just yet. All we've done is just match the loudness levels, okay? So cool. And you can see how this can be used for music, which you can also do, for background sound, for sound effects, for Foley, just to get everything at the same starting level before you begin tweaking, before you start drawing envelope lines, right? This is going to do it for you. By the way, that setting of the target loudness is also user editable. It doesn't have to be -23 LUFS. That's just kind of a standard that we wanted to use to make it a bit more easy, especially if you're working broadcast. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, if I go ahead and solo just the dialogue tracks for a minute, do this very quickly, what you'll hear is that there's actually a lot of hum and rumble on this stuff.
I've only been working here for 5 years. Oh, okay.
So you can hear that there's a lot of hum and rumble on there. So this is again one of those things where very quickly I can say reduce rumble and reduce hum, okay? And by doing that, I'm just going to increase the rumble here a little bit. I'm going to roll back this de-hum, and you can also see that we respect 50 cycle and 60 cycle, depending upon which side of the pond you're on, so to speak. We've also got a de-esser in here to minimize sibilance. We've also got noise reduction to reduce background noise. Now when I play this back, you'll see that it's going to sound infinitely better. And again, using the uninterrupted playback feature in Premiere, I can turn this on or off and really hear kind of the difference with what this is doing. Let's take a quick listen.
Oh, okay. I've only been working here for 5 years, so let me just check on that for you.
Thank you.
Okay. So again, very quickly, I can turn this on or off. You can hear the changes that it's making. Now, one thing that I wanted to show you here, again, talking about control, is that you're only seeing a single slider. And for anyone who does sort of audio all the time, you probably know, I just saw Dave Helmley's comment. You probably know that a single slider, it's like, really? I mean, I can't imagine telling someone in After Effects, nope, it's one slider to do whatever, do that expression or something. It just feels like there's not enough there. Well, let me sort of cure your fears, because if we go into the effects controls and I select a clip, for instance, this one here, where I've got noise reduction, rumble, and de-hum applied, what you'll actually see is that at the clip level, it's applying effects non-destructively. And if I were to open something like the adaptive noise reduction, when you are in fact moving that single slider, it's not just more or less noise reduction. It's actually moving multiple parameters simultaneously, sort of reconfiguring and relearning how to perform this operation. So you have individual editing capabilities in the actual effects themselves, or you never even have to go here. That's the brilliance. You've also got a couple of different presets inside each of the respective effects. Similarly with FFT filter, which we're using for the reduce rumble, again, it's adjusting sort of the slope of the curve here. And once again, FFT, which came directly from Audition, you've got a couple of different presets in there. My favorite actually is this one here, Kill the Mic Rumble, which is very good for removing momentary plosives or popping Ps, okay? So again, you get the idea. You've got all of this control, including dynamics. And this one is my absolute favorite. This is the dynamics processor. I'm going to talk more about this and kind of the new look of this when we get to Audition in a few minutes. This one specifically is not just applying a compressor. Anyone who's ever tried to use a compressor to kind of even out the sound of your dialogue knows that it's very hard and it's very easy to do it incorrectly. Well, what this is actually doing is it's analyzing the threshold of all of your audio clips. What does that mean? The threshold is the point at which compression begins. This is the thing that most people set incorrectly, particularly if you're using the graph here. If it doesn't exceed that threshold, if the sound doesn't cross that threshold and go above it, and you have a particular ratio set, you're not compressing. Compressors are also amplifiers, by the way. So a lot of times people set the threshold incorrectly, they amplify it, and it's just louder and noisier, but it's actually not compressed. This takes all that pain away. It analyzes the threshold, it knows what the settings should be, and again, as you move that slider, it just goes from a more natural sound to a more loud, upfront, and focused sound intelligently. Could we say that this is kind of a little bit of AI, Yeah, a little bit. It's learning. It's automatically detecting threshold levels. So this is awesome and just really amazing. Okay, so that's a little bit on the dialogue stuff. Now, I'm not going to spend any more time here. I want to show you one more thing, which is, again, super cool with regard to ambience and sound effects. So this is the bar scene audio, which is probably, from some sound effects library. All right, we've got it soloed. And if you're taking a listen to this, and if you're in headphones right now, the camera is on them, right? So the bar sound, first of all, we shouldn't hear discrete voices and chatter. It really should be sort of in the background sounding. So when I select these clips and I tell Essential Sound that it's ambience, once again, we've got the auto match loudness. Now this is the same clip, just used multiple times, so I don't need to auto match this. Typically, though, if I'm taking different sound effects from different sound effects libraries, that's exactly what I do, because guarantee they'll all be at different levels. So you can see how auto match is just so essential for video editors. But here we have creative. And what this is going to allow me to do is add spatial reverb or ambient effects to, again, put it inside of a different environment. So we happen to have a preset here called large room. And I'm going to just play this back, and let me start with this slider all the way down, and I'm going to increase it so you can hear that it starts to just make that background noise feel like it's behind them in the scene. Take a listen. All right, so that's kind of really in the background. Maybe we'll roll it back to something like this. We've also got stereo width. So again, we can have this quite narrow, almost mono-ish sounding. It's already in stereo, but watch what happens as I widen this. Now I've got speakers on. I mean, you can really hear that the whole stereo sound page just goes... It really opens things up. Now that's super wide. I don't know that I would necessarily do that. It's the idea that simple controls right at your fingertips for the things that you need. That's the essence of Essential Sound. And then lastly here, with regard to music, again, you've got match loudness, so essential. Even if you're, you're doing YouTube vlogs and you've got different cuts of music and different sections of the vlog. You're taking it from modern artists or whatever, or from royalty-free or not royalty-free libraries, but just additional sound and music libraries, production music libraries, something like Audio Network. If anyone's checked them out, they have amazing production music. And you want to auto match, you can do that. But also you have the ability here to adjust duration. So this is a classic feature that we've had in Audition for a long time, which used to be known as kind of fit to fill. So let's say that this audio file, we knew that this, let's say it was the trailer, was 1 minute and 19 frames. So I could say make this 1 minute. When I do that, what you can see down below is that it automatically shrinks the audio by increasing it 160.86% via speed without changing the pitch. Now, if you wanted to send and do more of this using something like Audition's remix feature, which allows you to dynamically recompose that audio, you have that option as well. And you can send the entire sequence here, okay, to Audition. Now I'm pulling up this dialog because this is actually something that we've modified and made even better. Specifically, the interoperability between Audition and Premiere. And with regard to Essential Sound, you now have options regarding audio clip effects. So you can simply non-destructively transfer them. You can render it with non-transferable effects. You can just render everything and send it over there, or just remove all the effects entirely. We're going to transfer, and then again, not only at the clip level, but at the track level. This will also transfer settings even if you have third-party VST effects applied. All the settings, everything that you've done will carry over. So cool. So just to kind of show you, if I were to click OK on this, we're going to go ahead and send the video via dynamic link. It's going to send everything over to Audition just to kind of show you how this works as it prepares the sequence data, prepares it for Audition. Again, just further expanding the capabilities of dynamic linking, of interoperability between the applications here, really allowing us to move through these so awesomely and fast. All right, gotta keep moving here. All right, shoot, wow, it's getting late. All right, here we go into Audition. All right, let's click OK on that. And here we go. And it even respected the fact that I was still soloed. Again, if I choose this, notice here on the background sound, notice, look, it's got the large room ambience that I applied. And it also has the stereo width that we applied as well at 3.3. If we were to go to the bartender, you can see that it's got reduce noise and rumble. All the settings that we applied are there non-destructively, super easy. Let's close this session in its media, not going to save any change. And that really just kind of makes a huge difference. So Essential Sound for tackling audio tasks for the non-audio pro or even the audio pro, because now with the transferability, you still have full editability of all the effects. If you send it to Audition, you can modify any element of this. And again, just kind of keep on working. Hold on, I've got a little bit of spittle on my lens there because I'm talking so quickly. All right, so now let's bounce back over to our editing workspace here and talk a little bit about VR. So we've got a couple of new additions to our VR workflows. We just introduced VR a little over a year ago, I guess, or about a year ago. And in this latest release, we're now introducing initial support for ambisonic audio. Basically, if you've captured ambisonic audio, you can place it in the Premiere Pro timeline. It can pass through and export so that you can experience that ambisonic audio, whether you're using goggles or watching on YouTube. But we've done a couple things to allow you to preview what that audio is going to sound like in Premiere before it goes out. So here you can see I've got an ambisonic audio file. It's 4 channels. If we were to go to the new sequence icon, and hold on, let me just zoom in so you can see it here. Go up to new sequence. First, what you'll see is that we've got a whole new series of VR presets, and specifically ones that support ambisonic audio workflows. Now, this is something I want to point out. If you're going to be working with ambisonic audio, it tells you here in advance, and these are those tool tips that people don't often see. You want to make sure that in your audio preferences, multi-channel monomedia, the default option is to set it to adaptive. The reason for that is to be able to preview this audio with 2 of the new effects I'm going to show you, it has to be a self-contained, interleaved 4-channel wave. You don't want to break it out into 4 mono streams. That's not how it works. So this is telling you you need to go there and make that change ahead of time. On the Mac, it's going to be under Premiere Preferences Audio. On the PC, it'll be Edit Preferences Audio. And this is the setting that we're talking about right here under Default Audio Tracks, Multi-Channel Monomedia, to bring it in as adaptive. Now, this is specific to the ambisonic workflow. You can change this back to mono or whatever you want when you're working with non-VR ambisonic content. Okay, so this is some content from the needles. We showed some of this before. If I go ahead and toggle my VR video display here, this is going to show you that. Now, I can just play this back just ahead of time. You're not going to really hear much of a difference, but you'll just see that this is working. All right. There we go.
Over there is the witch. Behind it is the warlock, the 3 summits. And then down below is the sorcerer.
And again,
I think behind us
I
is
can
the
start
sorcerer's
moving
apprentice, or maybe
around,
the magician,
panning
actually.
around in this content
They all have like
as it's
wizard
playing
and warlock.
back. Also want to emphasize that this is incredible. I'm doing this at full res here, and this is 4K content. So again, just performance enhancements across the board with these applications. But here's where this starts to get really cool, because I want to be able to sort of experience what that binaural type sound is going to be like in headphones before I publish out to YouTube or to my, if I don't have a headset with me. So under the effects panel, I'm just going to go ahead and move this up here for a moment. If I type in ambi for ambisonics, you'll see that we've got 2 new audio effects here. The first one is the binauralizer. I can just add this to the master. This is how you're going to want to test this. To the master fader here, binauralizer, ambisonics, okay? And you'll notice that when you start playing now,
it's hard to keep them all straight. There are a bunch of different spires.
you can see it's only showing you a stereo output. That's because if you've ever listened to binaural recordings, the way that it actually used to work traditionally is you'd have like a dummy head that had microphones in the ear canals. And the concept was that it picks up the audio in a 360 kind of space. By the way, binaural audio has been around for decades. So that if you're in headphones, even with 2 just stereo, via binaural, you're going to feel where that audio is. So you can imagine in a VR 360 world, this is what we're testing. So ultimately, let's say I wanted to sort of verify what the sound should be like when, I turn my head, around. So basically so that he's kind of behind me. So you notice I just now showed those controls because we have the ability to see the actual where the position is in degrees. So let's go ahead and move this over, let's say, 90 degrees this way, or maybe even a little bit more, 113 degrees. So he's actually almost behind us now, just a little bit skewed off to the back. In the binauralizer here, you'll see that you have this pan setting. So now as I play this, let me wind back, from this view, I'm going to start adjusting the value for this parameter. And if you're in headphones right now, you'll hear that it actually starts to feel like it's going behind you.
The 3 summits. And then down below is the sorcerer. And I think behind us is the sorcerer's apprentice, or maybe the magician, actually.
Okay. And again, we can go back to kind of front and center here. Let's play this back again.
Actually. They all have like wizard and warlock names. It's hard to keep them all straight. There are a bunch of different spires.
Okay. And this is just a way for you, again, to kind of preview how that audio is going to work when you publish that audio out from via Media Encoder. All right. So that's the binauralizer. Now, as Dave said in his video, when you export this, you either want to disable this effect. You don't want to use this on the export. It's solely for preview. Or frankly, you can just kind of take it out. There's no reason to necessarily leave it in there. Now, with the panner here, this is going to give you the ability to, at the clip level, again, make some modifications. So if I go into my effects controls, you'll see that in the ambisonic panner, you can adjust pan, tilt, and roll, and you can keyframe those changes as well. One additional preset, or rather effect that we've added, is a VR projection effect. So what this allows you to do, as you might guess, is this lets you, again, in a similar kind of vein, keyframe, panning, tilting, and rolling of the video in question. And you can see you've got separate options here for input and output layout. Now we know that this is stereoscopic over under, and we're outputting the same. So the input and output are the same. And maybe, again, as this VR content, now this is what it was captured on. This looks like it was done with like a drone or something. Maybe I want the video itself to actually start to tilt up and down. So I can do just that. I can set a keyframe here. I can scroll along, and I can start to adjust the tilt. And as I wind this back, it'll start tilting as it plays. But again, this is totally interactive. So even as it's tilting, as the keyframes are happening, I can still click and drag and move around. So again, you're just adding additional motion, and in my case, making me dizzy, in that 360 VR sphere. Super, super cool. And once again, when you go to export this, if we go up to File, Export Media, just to show you some of the options there in Media Encoder, and we're going to go out to H.264. You'll notice inside of the preset menu now, typically I'll just go to something like Match Source. However, you'll also notice a lot of new presets here for monoscopic and stereoscopic with the various attributes. So you've got a lot of flexibility here with how you export this. Again, if you're going directly to YouTube, you can choose something like, in this case, the 4K export, whatever it is. Okay. Or okay, that's actually the wrong ones. Yeah, we're going to go, because again, this is different frame size. So for this, we would just do the match attributes. Okay. High bit rate. Because it has the auto aware VR capabilities, which we added in the last release. Again, by default, Premiere Media Encoder already knows that the video is VR. It already knows the frame layout. But here's where it gets cool under audio. So again, twirl this down now, and you'll see that the audio in this case, for this particular one, I must have just disabled it. The audio is ambisonic. Okay. So you've got a couple of different options here that you can work with. Oh, whoops, didn't want to export that. To create that sort of ambisonic pass-through. Really super cool. All right, so let's see, what else have we got? Stock video, yes. Okay, so last but certainly not least, or last two but certainly not least. All right, let's go back to my graphics workspace for a second here and pull up CC Libraries to talk about some of the cool things we're doing here. We're just going to search on some sunset videos. We've got our filtered search, so I'm looking just for video here. Now, you'll notice by doing that, nothing new to this workflow. Here's a bunch of sunsets. What is new, and this is such a welcomed addition, you'll remember that if you were actually working with library video in CC Libraries and Premiere, to see the preview, you actually had to go over to the web. But now we actually have a hover scrub capability. So just as you hover over it, you can actually see the video itself before you download or add that to your project. So hover scrub capability in CC Libraries, super awesome. Additionally, we've also added some stock contributor capabilities here, where now you have the ability to directly publish your content right to Adobe Stock from within Premiere Pro. So this is some footage that I shot some time ago that I wanted to perhaps share and sell, monetize on Adobe Stock. So I'm just going to add a Lumetri color effect to this. This is some old synthesizers of mine, analog synthesizers. Go in here, I'm just going to add a little bit of a LUT, maybe something like this 2395, or let's see, what, 3510. This one. Okay, cool. So this is just a clip of, you know, some kind of artsy looking clip of a Moog synth here. So I'm going to go ahead and I want to share this and send this up to Adobe Stock to ultimately try and monetize and sell this. So again, I can choose H.264, I can choose my formats, I could choose QuickTime, ProRes. When I go to Publish now, you'll see under the Publish options, you have an Adobe Stock option here. And when you go ahead and export that, what it'll actually do is send that clip up to Adobe Stock. You can see right now we're encoding that. It's got to be a minimum of 5 seconds for your video, friends. So we're at 6:13. We're good to go. And based on your internet connection, it's going to start uploading that file and basically allow you to just very quickly send that up to Adobe Stock. It even gives you the link when it's all done. So we'll go there in a couple minutes and see if we can't see that that file's already there. And my friends, that's Premiere. And my God, we're like 50 minutes in. So I got to hop over to After Effects, which I can do quickly. But so much stuff we saw. Essential graphics panel, essential sound panel, CC libraries, the type tools, ambisonic audio support, scrubbable stock video, destination publishing to stock, and more. New format support, it just never ends. And that's, again, the promise of Creative Cloud, continuous innovation. Okay, so let's bounce over to After Effects here and talk about a couple of really cool things. Again, I talked about using different workspaces. Here we are in the new color workspace. Let me just go ahead and reset to the color saved layout and switch my view here. One of the big features that people have been asking for, user requests, we do listen, it's having scopes. So here now you can see directly in After Effects, we've got the beautiful Lumetri scopes that you've seen in Premiere Pro. You've got the wrench menu here, or you can simply right or control click to change the view. So we've got various presets, you know, if you just wanted the histogram here, or if you want the vector scope, or if you want kind of the classic 4-up display that we sometimes use in Premiere. You can see we've got different presets there. Also, again, the parade type, the waveform type, the color space, and the brightness controls. So this is just one of those things. People have been asking for it. We've now brought it to you. The footage there that you're seeing, of course, that was from the Imagine Dragons. That's an outtake from the Believer video shoot. So great stuff there, and we're really glad to bring those scopes to After Effects. Okay. Now this next feature, this actually speaks to a little bit of Adobe magic, and it's something called Camera Shake Deblur. Now, if you've used Photoshop in the last couple of versions, you're probably familiar with a feature that we added there some time ago called Camera Shake Reduction. In the same spirit, you shoot video, maybe it's handheld, and it's a little shaky, and the shakiness is one thing, but you've just got some sections that are kind of motion blurred, and a lot of times that kind of just ruins the clip. So here's the original. And you can see it's pretty shaky, so this probably needs a little bit of stabilization. So I took this same clip and I stabilized it with Warp Stabilizer VFX. And it looks a little better, but there's actually quite a few frames that maybe they're accentuated now. They're even softer than they were. So here's kind of the original. Here's the new one, stabilized, it looks better, but the frame is still very soft. So I want to try and sharpen that up. Well, this is where we're now going to add Camera Shake Deblur. And what this actually does is that it automatically identifies sections of a clip that contains motion blur, and then it uses our optical flow technology to basically blend sharp frames on either side of the blurry regions and kind of restore that content. So in Effects and Presets, actually I think I've already added it, I just haven't enabled it. No, I haven't added it yet. Okay, so let's go to Camera Shake Deblur. Drag this onto our clip. Now you've got a couple of modifications that I'm going to make here. Let's go ahead and make the blur duration 7 frames, standard or high quality method. And then you've got some strength and shake sensitivity. And these things, they're a very seasoned to taste kind of effect and filter. Give it a second to process. Now, as you're looking at this right now, you might think, well, that doesn't actually look much different. But wait, now we're all on the same frame here. Here's the Camera Shake Deblur version, and I want you to pay attention right in the middle here at all those lines and the windows. Whoa, look at that. So there's the pre-Camera Shake Deblur. There's the post. Before Camera Shake Deblur and after. Before and after. All right? It's a little bit of Adobe magic. Now, is this going to work for every shot that you have? You're just going to have to try it, right? Sometimes it'll work. Sometimes it'll surprise you. It's one of those things that you just have to check it out and see, and it can amaze you with the kind of things that it can do. Okay, so Camera Shake Deblur and new scopes. What else? GPU accelerated effects. People, you'll notice that in the last couple of versions of After Effects, things are getting faster, things are getting more real-time and more interactive, and part of that is we've been accelerating a lot of the effects, leveraging the GPU to take it off the CPU to give you more sort of, uninterrupted preview capability. In fact, we added that uninterrupted preview feature some time ago in After Effects. So one of the first things that I wanted to just show you, and I'm probably just going to step through these now. I've applied a bunch of them already. The tint oh, sorry, that's not the one I wanted to do right now. The drop shadow. So again, perspective drop shadow, commonly used effect. We use it all the time. This is one of those that now we actually have available to you. It's GPU accelerated. Sorry, I'm going to move some of this stuff here. So let's go ahead and modify some of this. So first of all, let me just scrub this ahead a little bit. All right, and let's go ahead and set the opacity to around 25%. All right, and we'll change the direction here and maybe modify the distance like that, and the softness to around 50. Go ahead and play this back. And again, uninterrupted preview without the drop shadow, with drop shadow, without the drop shadow, with drop shadow. It's so fast. This is all in a laptop, and all these applications are running simultaneously. All right, so crazy stuff, right? GPU accelerated effects. What else do we have here? Oh, people are gonna love this one. Gradient ramp. So this is another one of those where, again, like people have been asking for this one to be sort of accelerated. It's used frequently. Let's go ahead and grab the gradient ramp on here. Stick that on the white solid. Go ahead and change this to color. All right, let's enable this. And basically what this is going to do, it's going to tint the layers below to black and white. I'm going to modify the start color. And let's go to something like a yellow here. All right, like a light yellow. And the end color, we'll modify this to something like an orange. I did much better on time when I was doing this earlier, so apologies for that. All right. And again, gradient ramp, GPU accelerated before, after. And by the way, because we've got the nested pre-comp of the text with the drop shadow, that's all in there too. It just functions so darn nicely. Levels is another one of these. So GPU accelerated levels. Here's the levels effect applied. Luckily, I've already got this one done for us. So again, kind of just gives you an idea right there, on and off, uninterrupted preview. After Effects getting more and more real time. Fractal noise, yet another one, okay? People have been asking about this for quite some time. So now you've got GPU accelerated levels and fractal noise happening on this composition. Here we go again, before, after, before, after. And I just wanted to show you a slightly more advanced version of that here, because in this particular one, what you'll actually see is that we used several iterations of that fractal noise to kind of create the grit that you're seeing on the screen there. Okay, so again, GPU accelerated, multiple versions of fractal noise happening here, leveraging some of our global performance cache. It just functions and works so nicely. All right, really just beautiful stuff. Okay, so we're going to cut ahead now. We've got some other things with some masking shortcuts, and now you can create a shape layer, and without letting go of the mouse, you can hold down A to add, or S for subtract the region inside of your mask. Lots of shortcuts applied there, but I want to talk a little bit about and show you just a couple more examples of some of the amazing things with these live text, motion graphics templates, which in fact, now that I said that, replaces the live text templates from before, okay? This, of course, because it augments this feature with so many more additions. So this is just one of those really cool things, and this is one of the things that you're seeing a lot in modern shows on HBO, on Netflix and stuff, where you have a title sequence, an intro for your show. And what the designer has done for each episode, I think The Patriot and Girls does this all the time. It's always the same music, but they change out a lot of the visual elements in the title sequence. And we've done that here. So again, you've got your editable first assistant title, last name stuff going on here. But what you also have, if we take a look, let's go to the right composition. This is number 3. What you also have directly inside of this motion graphics template is the ability to change the episode number. So imagine I'm the editor. I'm bringing these motion graphics templates into my edit of my series, of my show. It's not episode 3 anymore. This is episode 5. So I can change that. That expression, or that setting, is editable here in the Essential Graphics panel because I've set that in After Effects, and it changes it for me right on screen. I don't have to do anything, right? It just goes there. It just works. Similarly, the background images. So for each episode, I'm going to have a different background image. You can see I can change that there as well. And again, if I brought this into Premiere just like we did before, the same applies. I can change the accent colors. Okay, I can change the background tint. Right, you get the idea. We don't have to go through all of this. But it's just this idea that you have all this incredible flexibility here, and all of this can be used and shared via CC libraries with your editors. The background image thing I thought was so cool because what you actually can see down below, it's just a pre-comp where they have all of the images basically on separate frames. So obviously there's some kind of function, whether it's an expression or something that was set there to just advance the frames, again, using that slider to advance the background image. So freaking cool. So much capability. Now this one too, this is this Gold Rush map template. Now this is where we were talking about before. Sometimes you want to minimize the range to kind of make it perform a little bit better. So in this particular one, what's actually happening is that this is actually kind of flying through, and you're seeing it's kind of reconfiguring. There's a lot of stuff going on here. There's a lot of video. There's a lot of blur. You can see that it's kind of flying through this image. Once again, we've got the location name, so we can call this Jason's Studio. Whoops. All right. Oh, I don't know what I just did there. I'm not going to worry about that. But you've also got the duration here as well. Again, you can set the range so that it's not quite taking as long to move through the map. Okay? Really, really easily. So it just kind of gives you that much more flexibility when working with these motion graphics templates. All right? And lastly, here in After Effects, this was something that, again, people have been asking for a really, really long time. And it's effectively just the ability to work with greater than 99 FPS content. So, again, whether you're bringing in 120 frame per second content into compositions, using interpret footage, or any place where just arbitrary frame rates are used, we now support greater than 99 FPS. So this is some content that I believe my colleague shot in Bali. This is, in fact, you can see up here if we just look in the project panel. So it's 120 FPS, and I don't need to play this back for you. We can just turn off the sound. But again, you can just work with this content. You can interpret this as 24 frames and get that ultra beautiful slow-mo if you want. Something that people have been asking for, something that we've now added to After Effects. So support for higher frame rate footage, motion graphics templates. Of course, you've got the CC libraries preview and the ability to save your motion graphics templates locally to Essential Graphics or to CC libraries. GPU accelerated effects, and there are more. I didn't even show you all of them. Camera shake deblur, a little bit of Adobe magic to take motion blurred frames and kind of bring them back to sharp using optical flow technology. Masking shortcuts, new updated Lumetri scopes right from Premiere Pro with even more viewable options inside of After Effects. This is the promise of Creative Cloud, continuous innovation. Okay, over to Audition now, where we are just about, I've got about 5 more minutes of your time. Thank you so much for watching again. So we've done a lot to improve multi-channel audio workflows here in Premiere. And you see, I'm even I'm having to follow notes for myself so I can keep on track here. So here we have an MXF file that contained 8 channels of audio, and there's video. This is also C around. And the 8 channels represent, 1 and 2 represents a stereo mix of everything. 3 and 4 is stereo dialogue. 5 and 6, stereo sound effects and ambience. 7 and 8, stereo music. Now, I've always talked about for some time that in Audition you actually have full editability and mastering capabilities when you have an interleaved audio file like this. But what we actually want to do is show you some of the cool mixing capabilities that you have when working, and rerouting capabilities that you have when working with this interleaved audio content, as if you were coming from an MXF file. So I've got a dummy blank session that I created here. I'm going to grab the video, drag it into my track, drag this along the edge. Again, there's our guy from See You Around. And then I'm going to take the audio file. Now, if I were to just drop this directly into track 1, by default, what it does is it automatically places it in a single track, kind of like what we saw before with the adaptive ambisonic audio. But we don't want that. I actually want to break this out into individual tracks. So for that, I can hold down the Alt or Option key. Now, this has been the case for quite some time, even if you're selecting if you're selecting multiple audio clips and you want to place them across multiple tracks, that's how you do it. Alt or Option actually does that even in the previous version. But now it'll separate out the channels in an interleaved wave to separate channels in your, or separate tracks in your multi-track editor. But wait, it does even more, because what if I know that I want the stereo mix on a stereo track, but then in fact I want 2 mono tracks for the individual dialogue, and the rest will keep as stereo. So what you can see here is I've got a stereo track. I don't know if you can really see that. You can see the 2 meters there. All right, so this is a stereo track, 2 mono tracks, and stereo. If I take this same file, drag this in, hold down Alt, but now I also hold down my Command key. Now what it does, if you're watching, is that it conforms to the track configuration that you have in the multitrack. So in other words, now it's already saying for me, because of the way I set up the blank tracks, okay, that first one is stereo, then 2 monos followed by 2 stereos, release the mouse, and we're good to go. And now we've got all of these discretely placed. And if I were to just kind of mute these other elements here, because again, the stereo one contains everything, let's just play this back.
Hi, yeah, hi. I'd like to get a drink, please.
Okay.
All right, and now you've got even more flexibility with how you mix and master these files. Now you'll also notice inside of the twirl down here, inside of the files panel, if you twirl down on this multi-channel audio file, you can see it shows that it's 8 channels here. Now you can kind of see the channel layouts. Now one of the cool things that you can also do, let's say that I wanted to actually take the mono dialogue and the stereo music, and let's say that I've got some alternate dialogue embedded in this 8-channel or 16-channel file. Okay, I'm going to drag this down, and I want this to actually live as a single self-contained 4-channel file here. The reason for that is that now you'll see in the properties panel, which I've docked in the bottom, whatever, where is that? Bottom right. You've got source channel routing right here. Yes. So, like I said, maybe actually 3 and 4, you want that to be, that's like the Spanish dialogue or the German dub dialogue. I want that to be, going to 3, 4, 1, 2. Actually, I was already going to 1, 2. It'll reconfigure. 1 and 2, place these up here, or 3 and 4. You get the idea. So you can reroute this inside of the multitrack before you mix down, and then when you're ready to finish this, of course, you can export the MXF content, your MXF video and audio, with Adobe Media Encoder. So this didn't have to come from Premiere. You can actually finish all of that directly in Audition. Okay, two last things that I want to show you here. Again, with regard to keyboard shortcuts, you saw me using a few of them. People know who've ever watched me. I know about 8 of them totally. Here we have a visual keyboard shortcut editor in Audition. We added this to Premiere in the fall release last year, or maybe it was the November-December release. Now you've got it in Audition as well. If you use any special keyboards like the Logic keyboard, for instance, that have that on the keyboard, this just makes it easier to see the shortcuts and modify them if you want to. Such a welcomed addition. And remember, we were talking about effects before. So what I wanted to show you was we've made some modifications to 2 very popular effects, specifically the Dynamics processor. Oops, let me close that for a second. The Dynamics processor and the parametric EQ. I'm getting a little bit of delay there. Okay. So in the Dynamics processor, what you'll see here is now you have, play this back.
Great. I'd like an elderberry liqueur.
Solo this. Okay. You've got gain reduction metering. Okay. So actual gain reduction metering for your content, as well as input level metering here inside of the Dynamics processor. Gain reduction metering, something I've been asking for 16 years. Since this was Cool Edit Pro, I've been asking for a gain reduction meter. So now we have that plus an input level setting to really show you how your graphing is affecting the sound. And additionally, you've also got a frequency spectrum available to you here in the parametric EQ. So again, as you're tweaking things, this just kind of gives you a nice visual layout of what's happening on the sound. Keep in mind, you also have frequency analysis in this panel here as well. It's taking that a second to kind of kick in. So both of these effects modified not only in Audition, but in Premiere Pro as well. All right, so super cool, super effective. We love having these new additions, multi-channel audio workflows, patchable, reroutable audio inside of Audition, the ability to separate out tracks individually or based on the track layout in your multi-track mixer, and so much more, and complete editability and non-destructive editability when sending sequences from Premiere Pro into Audition for audio finishing. So many great things in Audition CC. Okay, the very last thing, the very last application we're going to talk about is Character Animator. And I got to plug in my extra camera here to do that and go through this really fast. Sorry to keep you guys a little bit longer, but so much to show. I actually did this in an hour before. I'm mad at myself, but I just can't help it. There's just too much to show and too much goodness. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring up Character Animator here, and I'll just really talk about very quickly 3 quick things. So in the spirit of all of these applications, we talked about workspaces, right? You've seen workspaces being leveraged. So what you're going to find now is that you have workspace modules. In fact, here, and I'll turn off my camera since I'm now in the upper right. You've got workspace modules. So if you look up at the top here, you've got the start module. And the whole point of this is that it really focuses on a specific portion of the animation workflow. So, how you start, then you go into the rigging. So we're going to something like this guy here, this Evans character. Okay. And then you go into the record mode here. All right, when you're actually doing your recordings. And then you also have the option to stream. So you see the tools you need for the job at hand. This kind of follows and feels like, the kinds of things that we're doing in the other CC video apps. So this is just so cool. Additionally, very cool that we now have blend mode support in Character Animator. So taking a look at our character here, our little robot, and you can see that we've got a glow layer apply where we've got somebody hiding in there. It looks like it's the red monster. It is. You'll notice over in the properties panel, we've got our blend modes. And here we can just kind of cycle through these now. So we can screen it to just kind of reveal the red monster. And again, leveraging blend modes just to, add a little more visual interest to the puppets. You can imagine if you had, highlights to the eyes or shading on parts of the body that you created in Photoshop, now you can leverage the blend modes to really, basically recreate that same kind of look there. Again, a lot of parity between these applications, a lot of similarities. You're already building these in Photoshop or Illustrator. We want to give you that much more control directly here inside of Character Animator. Okay, now the next thing for this, we're going to go into our scene here, into our recording view. This is something that people have been asking for a long time. Let me just set my rest pose real quickly. My mic isn't going through this, so don't worry about that. But walking, and specifically something called walk cycles. So, in the last couple of versions, we've done so much to add like full head turns now. Remember, you couldn't do that in the really early versions. It would lose you. Now we've also got the ability to walk, and you can do that by using your left and right arrow keys very, very simply. And you can do all kinds of things from, walking to slumping, strutting, prancing, sneaking, running, headbanging. It's all going to function a little bit differently based on how your characters were built. It's also going to adapt automatically to long or short legs, and it supports all these different kind of walking methods. So just to kind of show you that here, here's Maddie walking across the screen. Notice her head turning as I'm turning my head. I mean, it's just fun. Let's go ahead and slump. I love this one. Or sneak. Sneak's a good one. And it really has this kind of very organic, almost, classic animation, 70s creep style. I love the way that this feels. And I don't know about headbang, but all right, some of these, again, depending on the character, it's going to give you a little different flavor every time you use these things. But again, you've got a lot of different properties, a lot of different capabilities here. And it's just one more way that you can add better looking animation right inside of Character Animator without having to go to After Effects to do a lot of that work, which you would have done in previous betas. And the last thing I'm just going to talk to, and I'm not going to show you here because my mic isn't working, is that you now also have editable Vizime. You basically have a Vizime editor now inside of directly inside of Character Animator. So the key with this is that if you're doing the lip sync, and sometimes where you said oh, maybe the mouth shape was wrong. All right. So what you can actually do is you can edit basically by right-clicking and choosing the right Vizime to replace the mouth shape to just improve your sync. Okay. So again, they're making it that much easier to get better lip sync, better looking, better movement, better natural walking. And also, I even had to, I had to write this down so that I could show you these. Don't forget that you've also got, triggers that you can use to trigger different motion in your character. So like with this character, Maddie, we've got her arms crossing, which I love that. Looks so real and organic. We got her blowing her hair. She does it even better than I do. Angry Maddie. Okay. What's this one? Arm, leg cross. So good. Again, that organic motion. Thumbs up, right thumbs up, like that. What's up? And of course, you can still click and drag and, do the wave if you want. She tilts her head and does other things. So, my friends, so much here. Vizime editor, walk cycles, blend modes, workspace modules. You've got essential graphics. You've got GPU accelerated effects. You've got the essential sound panel, the essential graphics panel, ambisonic audio, lots and lots of shortcuts, new multi-channel audio workflows in Audition, new VR presets and other elements and support for different formats with Media Encoder. And this is really just a taste of everything in this latest update to CC 2017. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for paying attention. Again, this video will be available for replay as soon as I stop this. Give it a couple minutes if you want to watch the HD version. And you'll be able to watch this again right after we're done. We'll also be live at NAB starting on Monday, so you'll be able to tune in and watch some of the live streams from there as well. See myself, Carl Soule, Maxim Jago, and many others live on stage, along with some of our incredible customers to show their amazing work. And yeah, so much cool stuff happening. You'll want to take a look at that. Thank you so much again for joining me. Have a great weekend, everybody. If you haven't already downloaded the latest updates to CC 2017, you'll want to do that. And don't forget, if you want to use those motion graphics templates in the Essential Graphics panel, make sure you've got Premiere and After Effects installed together. Even if you've got an old trial in there, just make sure you've got them installed so you can use and take advantage of that amazing motion graphics template workflow and start working with all this stuff right away. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you at NAB. Take care. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.